Well, it's hard. We can preview it, but it's always like we don't know if it's going to make it to publication until it's like the final draft. So,
It's that whole breaking
yeah,
news, like something may have happened somewhere involving
yeah, right.
someone. Yeah.
Welcome to UnityNow, the podcast where we discuss unity in the face of division. Inspired by the Unity 2020 plan, we strive to unite Americans by highlighting the middle ground between the two dominant parties and promoting the individual over groups. Each episode, we will bring you exciting, well-informed guests and host nuanced conversations about politically charged subjects. Our goal is to bring an end to the ideological war threatening the collective well-being of this great country.
Welcome back to the UnityNow podcast. I'm your host tonight, Toby Davis, and I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by Stacia Wilson and Craig Carroll of 2ndLook News. Stacia Wilson is the founder and editor-in-chief, and Craig is the managing editor. And before we introduce them real quick, I wanted to say that to our listeners and viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, we know that at least half of you don't hit the subscribe button. And we'd like you to go ahead and hit that now if you could, because we are all a volunteer base creating and producing this podcast. We all come from across the country to collaborate remotely and produce this for you. So if you like this content, want to see more great people like Craig and Stacia, then please do hit that subscribe button. And then back to our podcast. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about your brand new news publication, news website. I'll let you guys kind of describe it. 2ndLook News. Stacia, I guess we'll go ahead and start with you. Can you tell us about the news site?
Yeah, so we are also ex-Unity volunteers, and 2ndLook kind of came out of the end of Unity because I was trying to think of what would be most helpful, like what are the problems that I'm seeing, and what would be helpful if Unity was to pick up again. And I just actually a Unity friend and I were talking, and the idea kind of came out of that. But yeah, so we started a news publication, and the idea is that we want to be like this friend that you can trust who doesn't have an agenda and who does deep dive research and gives you all the sources, all the links to the original sources that they found, but they just lay it out with context, and kind of give you this chunk of like, here's in-depth this topic so that you have a sense of what's going on from an unbiased perspective. I feel like some problems that I really see in the news is that they jump to conclusions, make assumptions, they're just kind of throwing out breaking news. And that's kind of the business model for news is, you need to get a lot of content out fast. You need to be the first one and shock people. And so we're really trying to reinvent news and take it in a different direction. So we're trying to say, take a second look.
Okay. Well, you kind of stole my Jordan Peterson-esque question, but I'll let Craig. No, it's fine. You did a good job of describing the purpose there. But Craig, go into a little more of why. Just for those who think, oh, news is fine. I go to Fox News, I go to Twitter, I go to MSNBC, I go to NBC News, wherever their normal media sources are. Tell them why this is so needed in the country today.
There's so many reasons. I think we were just talking about one earlier this morning, and that is that something like 90% of all news that's produced is coming through sources owned by 5 major corporations. And so like kind of in the beginning of journalism in this country, at least, it was kind of these plunky, kind of slightly outcasts, just, go-getters who just wanted to kind of like let people know what's going on and hold the powerful elite types, political and the wealthy, Rockefellers and whatnot, which is obviously a little bit later, but they just wanted to hold all the elites accountable to the people. That was kind of the purpose of the press. But if all of the press is owned by the elites, that causes problems. And so it seems to me, anyways, that the only people that they really hold accountable are their political opponents, and not like the business or the political elites as a group. So that's one problem. And then the other problem is like you said before, if someone goes to Fox News or someone goes to CNN or MSNBC, like these things are very different. And it's gotten to the point where they're all so polarized that they simply refuse to see the other side as even existing. And so, 30% of the country is operating on the Fox News side. This is truth. 30% is operating on the, CNN, MSNBC side. This is the truth. They can't talk to each other. They're not even living in a shared reality. And the rest of us who are fed up with it all are like, well, y'all are over there in a weird fishbowl, and we don't understand why you believe what you believe, because none of these media makes any sense. So there's that polarizing issue, and really, it's gotten to a point where it's kind of deranged our public sense making, because we can't even have a conversation about ivermectin is a good one. Like, if you ask somebody, depending on the news source, that's a potential cure or preventative measure for COVID. If you ask somebody else based on a different news source, that's horse dewormer. You're supposed to have that discussion, because neither side is really educating their viewers or their listeners on what exactly that stuff is, why it matters, and to give the devil his due, it's a very difficult topic, as all of the topics in the news are, and so you can't really get real deep on any of it if you're on a 24-hour news cycle where you've got to have a breaking news story flashing every 20 minutes, and you've got to, your segments are 3 minutes long tops, usually 30 to 90 seconds. And so it just gets a thing where it seems like, to me, the mainstream media has said, and I consider left and right to be mainstream media. If they're on a cable news channel, or if they're publishing a global newspaper, I consider that mainstream. It seems to me that they've just given up on educating their viewers, and they're just providing whatever sells ads, which is a third problem with the news, is the revenue model. Before, fairly recently, it was subscriptions. You paid because you thought the product was good, and that's how the media was put out. Well, sometime around TV, cable news time, it became more about selling ads, and when the point becomes get more clicks, not educate your readers more, it's going to distort what you're doing. It's going to bias you towards those kinds of incentives. And so I guess that's three. I'll probably stop there for now, unless we touch on another one.
Yeah, fair enough. It's almost like at some point they almost created their own algorithms with, like social media does, and trying to keep you engaged more than trying to tell you the truth.
Yep.
Stacia, you guys told us before you started, you're both in Mexico right now. Tell us more about why you're there and what you're doing.
Well, I've just been living in Mexico for a bit, but some members of our team came down to work together. We wanted to get together in person. We've been gearing up for a full launch to mark the transition from our building phase to our growth, and really going hard with promoting, because I really think, we don't just want to make something and keep it in the corner. We really want to get the word out and become like a force for the sense making. It needs to reach a lot of people so that they can all come together and kind of find this joint worldview or something. Anyway, that's what we're working on. So we're just trying to get set up. It's really hard because our whole premise is really detailed stories that a lot of people can't write. Like, we throw out probably a third of them, and maybe a fourth of them don't need extensive editing or to be totally rewritten. So it's a lot of work to produce these, and we've been building up our system. So we do peer review and we get a left person and a right person, and we make sure to get an expert and a novice to look over every article and try to check for bias and check for triggers and see if we missed anything that because sometimes it's wild. Like sometimes the left will know about something that the right just doesn't. It's not on their radar at all, or vice versa. The right will know something and it's just obvious to you. So it's great to get those different worldviews to kind of look it over and see if there's anything glaring that's missing or wrong or so yeah, that's we've just been working really hard to get set up and hoping to just make that shift soon with our group.
Okay. And so Stacia, those of us in this space, might know about some independent news sources. They're, like Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, Ground Spot News, I think it is. I think the ones that do the left and right comparison. And it's almost like a third political party in that, there's so many of them, they can't get traction unless they like join forces or hit some kind of huge, I think it's like they hit 5% buy-in to really, go against the two big parties. How do you guys plan to differentiate yourself to stay between the lines of trying to grow, but also trying to stay true to your mission and your model?
So the way I see it, there is the comparison ones, right? But my problem with those, they're great, but the problem is that if you're comparing two lies, like where's the truth then? I think a lot of people think the truth is somewhere in the middle, but usually the truth is actually over in the corner over there. Like no one's talking about it. And so I think that's unique about us. We're not trying to do both sides. We're actually trying to do the fundamental problem that no one is talking about. Also, with a lot of alternative media, I feel like it can get kind of conspiratorial or, isn't as careful as I would like. And so with Second Look, it's cool that like even within our team, we have such different views. And I actually tend to be kind of more conspiratorial personally. But when I publish something with Second Look, it has to be like a good, it has to be solid. We have to have evidence for it. And so it's nice that we can all have our opinions and we can all, talk with each other and try to figure out the truth. But then when we publish something, it goes through this rigorous process where everything has to be cited and we all, it has to be looked over by a lot of people. And so we have, a pretty high degree of confidence that what we're putting out is reasonable and, supported by the evidence and, fair and all that. So I don't know of any site that does this kind of rigorous process, and also I don't know of a site that does as much context as we do. That's another thing that we're really big on. Normally news articles are presented as snippets, right? So you get like this snippet and you get this snippet and then you need to kind of piece it together. And that can be a lot of work. Or you just don't get a complete picture. So we really try to give our readers like a pretty complete picture. And we try to tie in different things like economics and politics and international things and history and, just like kind of give people a pretty holistic picture of a topic. So, we can't do it perfectly. Sometimes we publish like, what's our longest, Craig?
Like word count wise?
What?
What's our longest what?
Yeah, our longest word count for, I think it was the Cuba piece.
Shoot, I actually have that right here on my desktop.
I feel like it was 4,000 something words.
Yeah, it was 4,042 when we got it, and it ended up being closer to 4,500 when we published it.
Yeah. So that was a long one. But he gave a really good overview of just covering, so many different elements of what was going on with the protests in Cuba. And so, yeah, no one can do perfect context, but we really try to give context to our readers so that they aren't looking at things from a short-sighted or kind of a disassociated perspective. So yeah, I think all of that is unique about what we're doing. Yeah, we're gonna figure out what works in terms of the audience. I don't know if everyone is wanting to read long form pieces like this, and so we're talking about maybe doing video or looking for ways to appeal to or provide information in ways that work for different audiences. Some people aren't readers, so we want to make sure we get the content to them. Because the hardest part is the research, right? And the vetting.
Yeah.
So once we have good research and we vetted it, then we can present it in different formats that work for different people.
That sounds tough for sure. And, it's obviously a great endeavor. So Craig, to you real quick, tell us about what is the difference between the founder and editor-in-chief and the managing editor, but also another question, follow up to kind of what Stacia was saying, knowing that all these avenues of marketing news works, and Twitter, clickbait, videos, 10-second snippets. How do you guys intend to, fight against that, but also use it in the same regard? I don't know if I even framed that very well, but I think you probably get what I'm, coming at. What do you think about that? What is the strategy there? Or maybe you guys haven't even figured it out yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So Stacia is actually a better person to answer that second question, but I'll answer your first question by way of explanation, because so the founder is obviously the person who started the organization. All credit goes to Stacia for that. And then editor-in-chief, as it applies to the day-to-day operations, is she's the one making the creative decisions. She's the one who's got to do all the administrative and worry about the money. As managing editor, I just get to do the actual work of taking pieces of writing and turning them into stuff we will publish. So it's a much narrower scope. I don't have to worry about most of what you just talked about: promotion, marketing, funding. That's all up to Stacia, and I'll let her answer that. But as far as what I do, right now we're trying to reach out to as many writers as we can, and so Stacia does some of that. I do some of that. Many people help us out in that regard, and try to find people who want to write on something, who are knowledgeable enough to do so, and hopefully are good writers. And then I kind of get it and do an editorial look over it, make sure it's making sense, make sure it's, the writing is good enough, make sure it flows well and it's explaining things and it's not mentioning stuff that it's not clarifying or defining for readers. Typical editing an essay basically is how it starts out. And then we give some first feedback, let the writer redo a little bit of it, and then we send it out to our peer review process, which is pretty lengthy, but eventually that gets us to where we want to publish. And so that's my job, basically raw writing into published materials. And Stacia's job is overseeing me and making sure I don't step out of line, and I maintain her high standards, as well as everything else when it comes to running an organization. So I'll toss it to her to talk about what editor-in-chief does.
Yeah, Stacia, given that model, so imagine, Craig, you probably thinking like, I know why they have algorithms now to go through stuff, because it's probably, I don't know how many you go through a day, but it sounds tedious at best. So then how do you, Stacia, stay ahead of getting to people quick enough without cutting down, the word count or trying to, go through your peer review process, all those things?
Well, our concept is not like quick enough. We don't do breaking news. We're not trying to get it out, fast. That's why it's second look. I mean, we want to get out stuff that's still relevant. Like we're working on one about the eviction crisis, and we, put out one recently about Cuba and the Cuban protests. But we did that months. It took us months to get that piece ready. And so, yeah, we're definitely trying to take a second look. Often we don't even have all the information, right away. And so it takes months to get all that information to be able to put together a cohesive story. So I definitely think it's valuable. Like breaking news is valuable to just let people know, here's what's going on. Here's what we know so far. But at this point, we don't have the team to do that, and I think it's more about like the value that we offer is that we wait till we know more and then we put together like here's what actually happened. And so in terms of marketing, I think we'll find our people. That's really what I've been finding is that just in the most unexpected places I keep coming across people who want news like this, and they are just overwhelmed with the information overload and concerned with the state of our news and concerned with other things going on and not sure what to make of it. And so I really want Second Look to be a like reassuring, like refreshing news where you're like, oh, that's what was going on, just where it takes the stress of the information overload off of people. So right now, I feel like we're being kind of careful with the stories we publish. Like we're still working out our systems. But I hope we'll be able to tackle some really tough topics, that people are concerned about. And we're working on getting into data stories as well. So those will be like visual representations of data that are interactive and, present data in a way that shows you what's going on. So I think, I think people are trying to make sense of the world, and instead of just telling them, here's what's happening, sometimes showing them the data is the best way. So did that answer the question? I guess basically we're going to find our people. It probably won't be as fast as if we did clickbait or if we publish, a lot of content. But little by little, I think people will find us, and I think we're doing something really different. And so I hope people, our people will see it and be like, yes, that's what I've been needing. And that they'll become,
I mean, there's so many comments and questions that come out of that. I think the first one was, well, maybe you guys could develop the first true, honest breaking news source, which would be something along the lines of breaking news. Something happened somewhere. We'll tell you later, right? Something like that.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
We think something may have happened. We think it's in this area. We think it may involve these kind of people. And that's about all you can.
I'm interested in doing that. Like I want to help people make sense of the world, and there are a lot of different ways to do that. I'm also interested in making a data collection wing, because actually with the data stories, one problem we've had is that it's hard to find this data. It either hasn't been collected or it's gate kept. It's not readily available. And so I don't know how politicians are making sense of things when important data is not being collected, So I think we need that too, just better data collection. So there's a lot we can do, I think, in the realm of news and providing good information for sense making. So
the data thing, that's kind of my day job wheelhouse. So let's talk offline about that, or I can let you know. Maybe I can help. Who knows? along the lines of the endeavor to stay true to the messaging and not release it until you're ready. I mean, we talked to a couple news sources kind of like along these lines. Root Quarterly is more along these lines. I think it's a publication, a magazine that Heather Shane Blakesley described it to me as more of a written podcast, kind of a written long form podcast, where they literally only release it quarterly. And that gives them that built-in kind of time to produce really, really long, articles in a magazine on purpose, kind of with the same sort of mission that you guys are talking about. But I imagine reporting on just news events, it's got to be increasingly hard to get people to go there. But I see what you're saying. So take a second look at this story and maybe see what actually went on. What kind of stories? So you mentioned Cuba. What kind of other stories are you guys writing about?
Yeah. So before that, I'm going to get them all scrambled in my head because I've got like 3 in the editing process that I'm paying attention to.
Yeah.
Before Cuba, I believe was a very excellent 2-part story on Congress. Super proud of that piece. It answered questions that I had even had. If you want to know why Congress is so messed up, if it doesn't answer at least 80% of your questions, I will be surprised. And
what are you talking about? Congress is fine. What's wrong with Congress?
Yeah, a lot, turns out. A lot. Go read the article and you'll know more. But
Congress in Crisis, Assessing Our Broken Branch, Part 1 and 2.
That's the one.
I see it.
Or 2.
We had to make it a 2-parter. It was our first 2-parter, but we were just like, there's so much.
Yeah. And it could have gone longer, and we were like, I mean, I'm sure people have written books on what's wrong with Congress. So we tried to make it kind of if you don't know anything, here you go, and here's 50 different links to do more research, kind of a thing. So yeah, we don't really want to get involved in like super short form stuff if it's a very broad topic, but we also can't write novels. Like the quarterly magazine sounds like a great idea. I'm a little bit envious as an editor because it would give me a lot more time. We do have timelines that we're liking to meet, and we're actually gonna miss it this month. We try to put out at least 2 articles per month. We sat down, Stacia and I, yesterday, and we decided the one we thought we were ready to go out yesterday is not ready. It needs some reworks, and a lot of that was thanks to the help of some of our reviewers who are like, here's what's missing. You're not making sense over here. This isn't in the right order. And it's one thing for me to catch that stuff. It's another thing for 3 other people to catch it because it kind of validates it. But it's also our peer review process is excellent. And honestly, I think at least at first, until we're a huge organization, it's going to be the thing that makes us truly unique. And it's kind of modeled after the scientific peer review process, but I'm hoping someday we come up with a slightly different name for it because it's not the same. We try to, because this arose out of unity and the obvious problem between left and right polarization and the big gap in between them, we make sure first and foremost that we have reviewers looking at it that are from the left and right perspectives by their own account. And if they're not making comments that align with that, then we'll look at them and be like, oh, maybe this person isn't, left on this issue or right on this issue. And we understand that people aren't all left or all right. In fact, most of the people that we reach out to are like, I'm neither of these things. It's like, okay, we can't use you for this specific reviewer. That's all fine. But other than that, Stacia alluded to it or briefly mentioned earlier, we like to find expert reviewers, and we've gotten some very good ones. You asked about what kind of other articles we've done. We've done voting methods, like the difference between first past the post that we have in the U.S. and ranked choice vote, which they've implemented in New York City recently, and star voting and other things. And we've got some pretty interesting experts reviewing stuff like that. And before that, we had a healthcare article that's really good. It's full of stuff that I never even knew.
I wrote that one.
Yeah.
It took me like 3 months.
Wow.
And so, yeah, the point I guess I'm making is that we would rather put out content that is good than content that is either super timely or just to meet deadlines. Even though they're our own deadlines and we can change them if we want, we want to be held accountable to our members and our subscribers. But we want them first and foremost to know that they can trust what we put out is quality. So we're willing to kind of break every other goal in pursuit of that one. And so to go back to the review process a little bit, I mentioned left and right. We also have, I mentioned experts. We also have novices. Someone who doesn't know anything about the topic takes a look at it and goes, okay, I'm not understanding this bit here, or you didn't explain what that is. Something as simple as we have an article in the pipeline on like crypto. What is crypto? And the writer is obviously submerged in the crypto world, and so they use terms like, crypto assets. What is a crypto asset different from a cryptocurrency? And which one is Bitcoin? And which one is, what's Elon Musk doing over here with these dog coins?
Yeah.
You gotta, our novice reviewers help us figure out, if we're super knowledgeable in something, what our readers necessarily need to have to digest that information. Otherwise, we don't want to talk over anybody's head, but we also don't want to be super simple. So our experts are novices help us with that.
Accessibility. So, yeah.
And then we usually get a handful of other reviewers in there just to make sure that even our reviewers that we have also have their own biases. And so we usually like to have redundancies to the redundancies and backups to the backups. They'll go into the articles and there'll be long discussions that end up going longer than the article sometimes on, this one little detail, and we'll get all kinds of perspectives. And some of that's not going to make it in the article because we can only be so long, but it's really good. I think
it was funny with the Congress piece. We thought we were going to put it out way earlier, and then we got a peer review from one of the directors of The Swamp, which is like a legit movie. I did not realize when I reached out to him how legit it is. But he left some comments, and me and the writer were like, what is he talking about? Like, he's saying it's wrong, but why? And so we actually went and watched the documentary and just did like a ton more research. And so that was kind of funny, just that he just left 3 comments or something, and then from that we did like weeks more research.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that led to viable information?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It really enriched the piece a lot.
I've never heard of that. The Swamp. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's about Congress.
Is that where Trump got the term? Drain the swamp?
I think it was based on his term or just based on, he might have had it first.
Yeah. Well, he maybe didn't have it first. He certainly made it popular. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have like most of our staff are not professionally trained in journalism. So, we're gonna experience growing pains, and we're gonna inevitably get something wrong somewhere or miss something. But the review process and the editing system is designed to, improve over time in this way as we get more reviewers, and especially as we find more reviewers that are more specifically knowledgeable in certain things. And so I mean, for those looking for like New York Times level out of the Second Look news, give it a minute. But we're essentially like the mainstream publications have their failures, and we're basically trying to minimize some of those failures, which is going to cause others, but we think the process is going to help. It's going to be self-correcting over time, whereas the incentive structures and the problems I talked about earlier with the mainstream media have actually caused the opposite problem for them. So as they continue to unfortunately deteriorate, it's going to leave space for the rest of us. Like, I personally love Crystal and Saga and Breaking Points that you mentioned earlier, and I'm interested in looking up to the other things you mentioned. I'll have to go back and watch it. But yeah, we've got to all come together and do stuff. And the more different ways we can generate to do that, to fix this particular problem with the media, great. Some have got to work. Some have got to work better than the ones we've got now, because they're really, really broken.
Can I bring up another thing that is really important to us?
Absolutely.
So what I'm going for with Second Look is like a balance between more interactive. I actually want there to be more dialogue, not quite open source, because the problem with open source, or just like anyone can submit stuff or something, is then it's not checked really carefully, So it's like, yeah, we're going for a mix of very interactive and very, not gatekept, but very careful, like what we put out. And so we're trying to do both of those, because I think both are important. So we offer memberships that give our members access to community discussion below each article.
Well, before that, Stacia, important to note that our articles are all free to read.
Oh, yeah, that is important.
That is important. Yeah. So many people are locking those down now, right?
Yeah, so that's something that is also really important to us, is we never want to gatekeep our articles.
That's good.
I mean, we're going to so much work to put out this information that we think is important. So it would be so counterproductive to the mission of putting out that information for people to also be like, but you gotta pay. So yeah, we're definitely never going to do that. We may do advertising at some point if we need to. Our main funding is going to be donations and memberships, because that's the plan. So, but yeah, the memberships are about more than just funding us. We also want there to be that interaction. So then the second tier is you get access to a newsroom hotline. So you can actually send us like, hey, what's going on with this? Like, I want to know more about this. And so I'm hoping that like closes the distance, between you and your news. I feel like generally, like in the mainstream news, it's kind of like these journalists put out articles from on high, like, here is the information, here's what's going on. And you don't get to interact with them.
Right.
And so, yeah, we want that. And then the third tier is we do once a month a town hall with me and Craig and my writers. And yeah, so we actually talk and interact live with our members. So,
well, that part seems to be almost genius. I mean, probably is genius. So you're taking like a kind of a podcast model where people can subscribe via Patreon, right? And pay with maybe 2 or 3 different types of memberships. And you've applied it to a news website, a news source. Mm-hmm. So this is probably built in, but do you think you'll get the same kind of results where the people who are paying for it won't be kind of the Twitter crazies that go out there and, create, havoc just to create havoc, right?
I hope not. Yeah.
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 Well, that's.
Do you mean like because they'll have access to the discussion and stuff?
Well, it's like I've heard this from multiple people. Like when Dave Rubin created Locals, no matter what you think of Dave Rubin, he talked about the idea of creating a paywall, even if it was $1 a month. That interaction filtered out almost all of the nonsense, and those people that were willing to put forth that payment were doing that because of that commitment to honest and fair dialogue, or whatever the mission of the program is.
That's what I told people when I first had the $5 a month for the comment section, discussion idea. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I don't think that sounds good. But I think it makes sense. Like, it's higher quality, discussion if everyone's paying just a little bit, So yes, that was very much on my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Craig, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's too easy for people who just want to cause mischief or see the world burn to just jump in something that's you know high quality and make it deteriorate almost immediately.
Right.
Social media tends to and social media like components tend to allow for that possibility. So yeah, any amount helps keep that quality high. And then um, I had another point there, but I forgot it. So
Well, we're almost right at the end of the hour, the top of the hour there. You guys have to get going soon, right? Still the case?
Yeah, we can maybe do like 10 more minutes.
Okay. Then that's fine. I was going to give you a chance to, well, I had one more question, I think, for sure. Tell everyone all the avenues Second Look News will come out on. Is it just a website or what else?
Right now it's just the website
Okay.
and social media. We have a YouTube channel where we've been doing some roundtables.
Okay.
So we get a group of experts together to discuss a topic. But yeah, our social media is mostly Second Look with a 2 news. I think it was Twitter, it's Second Look _news. But you can get to all of those links from the website. Definitely subscribe to our mailing list so you get emails when we publish something. We don't spam you, we just publish something usually twice a month. And we may send like a couple updates here and there, but yeah, it's a good way to stay up to date.
and we do want to get to more than twice a month.
Yeah, we do.
And so, like, if you want to support, but you don't want to be a member per se and get involved into those things, you can, become a reviewer, volunteer to just take a quick read of an article, leave a few comments. It takes almost, 5-10 minutes, depending on the length. And that'll be helpful, and that'll help you feel kind of engaged with it. And if you want to write, we're always looking for new writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, we'll make sure to have it on the episode description. We'll put the secondlooknews.com, or no, it's secondlook.news. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it's secondlook.news with a 2ND, no space, LOOK.news. Great. And I was going to say earlier, I think, Craig, you mentioned the good idea about the quarterly publication. But I don't stay with what you're doing. I think the mission it's a critical mission for sure, to have honest news. And I like the idea personally of not trying to lean one way or the other or tell everybody that you're not leaning one way or the other. It's like you shouldn't have to tell people that. And I think that's okay to just be honest brokers about that sort of endeavor, that we're not Republican or Democrat, and you don't even think that way. Just read the information and take a look for yourself. And if it's something you thought you knew what was going on before, well, take a second look. I like that messaging.
Yeah, it's a good name. But yeah, we don't want to become left or right. We will inevitably report on something that paints the left or the right in a particularly bad light, but that's just because the thing needs to be reported, and it's just so happens the left and the right don't behave the same way, so it's going to come out different at some point. But we hope to have enough, our audience has enough trust in us and we're gonna to tolerate that kind of thing that tends to rub some people the wrong way. But also, the article is going to cover all sides of things as much as we can. And so, yeah, you might disagree with us here, but you're going to agree with us in the next paragraph probably, because we're not looking to further an agenda other than helping what's going on, and that's really it.
Yeah, and to those kind of Marxist postmodernist types that talk about facts and information, like you were talking about before, Stacia, you wanted to get into more data visualization to help people understand certain topics. There will be those that say that facts like that are, kind of the postmodernists look at it, that facts that's a colonialist view, right? So hopefully data visualization topics will help people understand that the truth does lie in the data sometimes, and even if you guys have 50 links to different topics, different sources for your news, then they should investigate those for themselves.
Yeah. Should I mention that we're about to kick off a fundraiser?
Absolutely. Tell everyone about it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. We're about to kick off a fundraiser to help us run for 6 months, and so we pay our writers and we have to keep everything up and running. And so if you can donate, that would be amazing. We pay us to do the work for you.
And how will people find the fundraiser?
We will post a link. We will have a link from the website.
Make sure you're a subscriber, and we'll make sure we get you the info.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys will post it on your social media, Twitter at 2ndLook_news, like you said earlier. Okay.
Yeah. And we can give you the link to put in the video if you want.
Okay. What else is going on before we finish? Anything else cooking that you wanted to bring up? Anything and everything will help you get this going.
Do you want to preview maybe some of the stuff in the pipeline?
There you go.
Well, it's hard. We can preview it, but it's always like we don't know if it's going to make it to publication until it's like the final draft. So
it's that whole breaking news, like something may have happened somewhere involving someone. Right? Yeah.
It'd be good for people to know what kind of things they can look forward to eventually.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said earlier, we'll get all the way through the process and be the day before publishing and go, nope, we're not there yet. So we don't promise any particular article any particular time for that reason, and we're still working out all the kinks in that process. But like I mentioned earlier, we've got crypto in the pipeline. We've also got I think Stacia mentioned the eviction crisis. We've got some stuff about elections, some things about education, obviously some COVID things. You can't be a news organization not cover that in 2021.
Well, that's actually new for us. We've been avoiding that because we're like, want to be careful there. But we're trying to venture into that. It is important.
Craig said the dirty I word earlier, which, probably means the YouTube video won't even be available. But
right.
Are you guys covering that dirty I word at all?
Funny enough, I was working on an article about it like months ago, and I found it's really hard to run the business and write articles. But that one in particular, I was kind of like, while I was working on it, more information was coming out. And, they found that some of the studies actually maybe didn't happen. And so even though I have my personal opinion, I feel like it's not settled enough to put out something that we can be really confident in. We may. It's a bummer that it's become so politicized.
Yeah, you can say that about almost anything nowadays.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, we have another piece coming out on disinformation and how various outlets are trying to deal with that, which is probably directly relevant to the dirty I word. But
yeah. Your mention of that word, at least get our video flagged, maybe, right?
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah,
I think I mentioned the two sides of the story, and no one has any idea which side I personally fall on or we as an organization fall on, because we don't have one until we do all the research, which we haven't done.
And that's in our discussions in the podcast. Some of us, we think we're like shadow banned because we're not, polarizing enough, or we're just not polarizing enough. So the algorithm's not tripping people to watch it. I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe you'll trip us up with that word for sure. That'd be great.
It wouldn't be a good news conversation if there wasn't some,
right.
Yeah, we're not shying away from controversy, but we are taking great pains to make sure that it's correct and that we establish some trust before we just start going off on the real controversial stuff.
And what else should anyone ask for, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it was secondlook.news, 2ndlook.news. You can find everything, your articles, become a member. You can subscribe, but also become a member to help you guys and support you guys. You'll post a link to a campaign there to help get the funding going. And you can follow all your social media there. What about you guys? Do you want to tell everyone how to follow you guys personally on social media or anywhere else?
Sure. I'm Original Stacia on Twitter. And please note that I post my personal opinions there. It is not the opinion of Second Look.
Fair enough. And Craig?
And I'm happy being completely obscure and unknown on the internet. So if you want to find me, you can find me, but don't need to. Just follow the organization if you want news, because that's not what I do on my social media.
Understood. And it's probably braver than the rest of us. I don't know. All right. So Stacia Wilson, Craig Carroll, and Second Look News. We thank you guys for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us, Toby.
And good luck. We'll help you out any way we can.
Thank you for listening to the UnityNow podcast. We'll be back with another conversation that highlights the political middle ground to unite Americans and end the ideological war. To find more conversations and content like this, be sure to subscribe to UnityNow on all major podcasting platforms. If you prefer video format, you'll find our channel with full episodes and clips on YouTube and Odyssey. In the meantime, please tell 2 people you love about 2 podcasts you love and subscribe to UnityNow today.
Bah!